Our family, just 2 weeks ago yesterday, I went through something no one would want to go through. About 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call, and Laura's brother is a police officer in Shelby, North Carolina. And I get a phone call from my mother-in-law about 3 o'clock in the morning, a very short phone call, and she's very soft-spoken, said, Timothy has been shot in the chest, come to Charlotte now. My brother-in-law, who was shot in the line of duty in Shelby, North Carolina, as a police officer, and tried to fight, and they did all the doctors and nurses, and people were amazing. They're in Shelby and in Charlotte, did all they could do there, but on Monday morning, he left this world and of course entered the gates of heaven. People wonder on the outside, what's it like on the inside? I remember some of the questions we began to get later on. People would ask questions about the guy that did it, and honestly, he was never even part of the conversation. Nobody even talked about him at the hospital, and it wasn't anything really anybody focused on. I remember here some of the family began to address a little bit of it, and my father-in-law, you may have seen on the news, kind of addressed one of the news outlets and said, I want you to know that we have forgiven him. We've forgiven this man. And honestly, what it would be, my honor would be if I were able to give the gospel to this man. Well, I remember hearing that and going, I just don't know if I'm there at that point yet. This guy created a terrible crime. There were no need in doing this, but he did. And here's a guy who's 38 years old with a small child and a wife and just in the prime of his life and career, and his life is ended. Well, what kind of really made it even more difficult was the location where it all happened. I've actually got a picture here, and I took this picture near the end of the week, and I'm standing in the church parking lot where my brother-in-law works at, where my mother-in-law attends church at, right in the center of town where they drive by all the time, every Sunday, and they went to church this morning. This is the view they saw. The house there in the center of the picture there on the left of all the houses there in the center is the house where it happened. It's where he went to serve the warrant at, and there at that house is where he was shot and then eventually died. And the question that began to come to my mind was, how do you face that? How do you face that every single day? Every day when you go to work, how do you face that? Every Sunday, Wednesday, when you go to church, how do you face those things? How are you able to process those things? How are you able to get to a point where you truly, from your heart, can say, I forgive you? So I was taking the picture, and if you know me, I do a lot of picture and video stuff, and I like to document things so I can go back to them later. And I took this picture, and I decided to step back and get a better angle. And when I stepped back, just to get a wider angle of the shot, the picture I got was this next picture. There in their church parking lot was the cross. And man, the Lord just, boom, hit me with it. But how do you see injustice? How do you see tragedy? How do you see what seems to be unforgivable? My answer is there's only one simple way that I know you do that. You look at it through the frame of the cross. And when you look at it through the frame of the cross really only says one word. The cross says forgiven. The cross says, no matter what you've done in the past. The cross says, no matter how wrong you've been done. The cross says, no matter how unworthy you feel, the cross says, you're forgiven. And when I saw that, I had to take the picture of that. And man, I thought, that is exactly, I believe, what encapsulates how you can get through whatever you're facing this morning. You can do it one way. You can do it because God so loved the world, and he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him could have forgiveness of sins. That is the only way this morning that you can have the frame of mind. The only way this morning that you can have the frame of faith to know that you've been forgiven.